Good afternoon, Mrs. Reynolds.
I'm confused.
You're a pure soul. But you didn't say God bless you when I sneezed.
Loki? Infinite fucking patience then? It's not right. It's not fair. We've paid our debt. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time we went home?
I give you the Buddy Christ.
This is Cocktail Cinema, folks. I am your first favorite bartender, your third favorite author, and your third favorite host. I am here with number one and number two in no particular order, Greg and Shasti.
Hello there. What's up?
I hope you're caught up on your catechisms, folks, because today we are going to be discussing Dogma.
I give you the Buddy Christ.
Now, before we get into that, let's have ourselves an adult beverage.
Jeez, stir it up.
Today's drink is called the Bamboozled Angel. It is 2 ounces of bourbon, half an ounce of simple syrup, half an ounce of lemon juice, 2 ounces of grapefruit soda, and a couple splashes of Angostura bitters.
It is delicious. I've already had some.
It is a very refreshing drink. Good all year round, but definitely gets the blood pumping.
Yeah.
Now, before your blood gets too pumping,
That's nice.
let's talk brass tacks. So Dogma came out in 1999. It was written and directed by the Fat Man on Batman himself, Kevin Smith. The music was composed and scored by Howard Shore of Lord of the Rings fame. And their budget was $10 million, and they had a box office return of $44 million. Could have been a little bit better. We're going to talk later about why it wasn't better. But in the meantime, this movie has a few familiar faces. Greg, would you like to talk about them?
So the director and shining star of this film is Silent Bob, Kevin Smith, always joined by Jason Mewes, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck as Loki and Bartleby, Jason Lee's coming in there quick too as Azrael. Those guys are linked at the hip. I feel like all of them. Linda Florentino as Bethany. We get into the comedic section of this film. George Carlin as Cardinal Glick, Chris Rock, Rufus, Janine Garofalo as Liz, Jeff Anderson and Brian O'Halloran. You know him from
Clerks fame.
Clerks. As always, the beautiful Selma Hayek is the muse, Miss Serendipity, and Alanis Morissette is God, and the late great Alan Rickman,
Indeed.
as that voice of God, because we can't hear God's voice.
Behold the Metatron, voice of the one true
The
God.
Metatron.
Tell a person that you're the Metatron and they stare at you blankly. Mention something out of a Charlton Heston movie and suddenly everybody's a theology scholar.
Hey,
Damn right.
called
Damn
him
right. So, let's dive on into our speed summary. So this movie starts out with everybody's favorite boys from Boston no longer hunting goodwill.
Oh, jeez.
They are fallen angels, and they have decided they're going to try and get back into heaven with a scheme including the late, great George Carlin, a large arch, and a whole bunch of killing. In fact, they kill so many people that Professor Snape has to go down and tell Jesus' great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandniece that she's got to stop him.
The voice of God.
Her guides on the way to meet up with the two angels at this church are Jay and Silent Bob. I think you've met them before. They are also accompanied by the apostle. What's an apostle?
One of those 12. I thought it was 12, right? 12.
The hell's an
guys?
apostle?
12 guys.
Apparently there were 13 apostles, and the 13th apostle was Chris Rock. This ragtag band heads on to this church, and we follow them across the country as Jesus' great-great-great-great-great-great-grandniece comes to believe in God. And the two angels slowly become villainous. Then no longer do they want to get into heaven. Well, Ben Affleck doesn't want to get into heaven anymore. He just wants to start everything over. He's tired. It's time to go home, and it's time to just be done with existence. This movie ends with Ben Affleck going on a killing spree. Matt Damon dies in horrible fashion. George Carlin just runs away because I guess that's what he does. And Alanis Morissette comes back and sets everything right because that's what she does. This movie ends on a happy note for most people. That is our speed summary.
Well, I'm gonna get into this summary. Oh, not for the
Movies. We're watching
I
movies.
love movies.
love movies.
All right, man. This movie's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah. Not much. There's so much to comprehend in this movie. It's sacrilege.
Or it's
Is
really
it though?
not.
Is it though?
I mean, it's really all just
stuffed down your
comedy.
throat.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Smith talks about how this movie is the compilation of a lifetime of being Catholic and being a filmmaker. So this is a real passion project for him. And you can tell. Like, this is right after Chasing Amy, another, big hit.
Oh, yeah.
But
More controversy.
yeah, this is definitely the movie that he had to bring his serious writing in with his comedic writing and find a way to marry them properly. And I mean, he did a great job of casting. He brought George Carlin in, who is mostly known for his comedy, but can play a serious character.
And he's a modern day prophet, I should say.
Definitely someone who
he's
talked about this stuff a lot.
so good.
So him playing the cardinal is fucking great.
And hates on the Catholic Church throughout the entire level of his career. And to start, maybe I'll start this one off. I went to Catholic school, and we used to get Friday packets, sent back home to our parents, with grade updates and what's going on for the next week. And this one week, there was a big, pink letter. I'm pretty sure it's pink. And it said, don't let your fucking kids watch this goddamn Dogma movie. And obviously, no F words and stuff like goddamn.
There were more
But it
F
was
words.
literally it was like that. It was like, you're going to be a sinner. You're going to be excommunicated from our school. Not just our fucking
For this
Catholic-
comedy movie.
For this comedy movie. It rang supreme sometimes somewhere. I mean, it's
It
They
did
go get
that
sacred
throughout the
doctrine.
whole Catholic League.
Yeah.
To the
Yeah.
point where they were protesting the movie. To the point where Kevin Smith was like, "Oh, they're in our town."
Yeah.
got his wife to go to a protest.
he's on. I think he's on camera saying I don't know what's going on with this movie. I
Yeah,
don't know
he
what-
is.
Yeah, no,
He is,
and
yeah.
he totally played the part too. And when he was, we've talked about this. He's the most accessible director there is in the sense where his tours involve going to college universities and huge auditoriums where he just takes question and answers for hours. And he said that he's such a whore for press that he was like, even though I'm faking it as an angry Catholic, he's like, I'm gonna play the part. And he got interviewed by the local Eatonville or wherever they're at by Jersey. The local Channel 12 News came there, and they were like, you look like the lady with the clipboard and the camera guy looks at her clipboard and looks at him and gets everybody and starts whispering to people and starts talking to him and are you the director? Are you Kevin Smith? No, I'm not. I'm just an angry Catholic. And he played the part so well.
He does. The interview is great.
Yeah, the interview. They ask him have you seen the movie? And he goes, no, I haven't. I just heard all these bad things about it, so I'm here to protest. That sold it for everybody. His mom called and was like, "There's someone who looks just like you on Channel 12 News." He's committed to that part.
Oh, it's good shit. He's such a great dude. We talk about directors and actors that you want to hang out with. He's definitely on the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
top of it for sure.
Yeah, I'd definitely put him on top of this list.
He's a genius. I mean, obviously. I mean, he turned Clerks, which is a non-budget, zero budget film, into one of the most revered cult classics ever to be.
A movie with no plot.
And
either.
then he and all of these fucking characters he's created have withstood the test of time. These Jay and Silent
His whole
Bob,
character web that
It's
he's built
nuts.
throughout his.
It's absolutely insane.
He calls it his View Askew verse.
The Askewverse.
Because it's all the characters from the View Askew production company. They either come back or the actors come back. So obviously Jay and Silent Bob are in everything.
Yeah.
And even Loki, spoilers if you haven't seen 1999's Dogma, Loki comes back in Jay and Silent Bob reboot. And he talks about how he's like, yeah, I got back into heaven, but God kicked me out again and he took away my memory and I wound up in the ocean outside of southern France, became an assassin. Just gives you the plot of the first Jason Bourne movie.
That's hilarious.
It's amazing.
That's hilarious.
It's a Miramax.
Miramax.
Yeah.
And they started trashing it more and more because of all the shit they had to deal with.
Well, I mean,
The opening.
should we get the elephant out of the room first? Let's talk Harvey Weinstein and his pervy ass.
Yeah, because from a critical
Yeah.
standpoint, like, I guess I can say it, right? Like, if I wanted to go look for this movie on YouTube or Netflix, buy to rent it, pay to rent it, whatever, I can't find it for very specific reasons. So this is one you can even say that you like pirated or whatever. You went on YouTube and downloaded the
Not
full-
me. I actually own this DVD, and apparently it's going for like
Yeah,
$200.
Yeah, if I was actually owned
I don't know how I own it. I mean, I did a lot of $5 bin searching in my day.
I've been looking for this movie for
got
years.
it.
Like
So
it's the cheapest you can
$200.
find it is like $40.
Not
So-
mine. Pristine.
But yeah, I mean, so due to Harvey and Rob Weinstein kind of finagling the system and writing up a contract where, in order for Dogma to be produced, they owned the rights to it for fucking forever, apparently.
But it started because like the Catholic League was coming after Disney for like everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At that time in '99, like they had like at Disney like a Pride Day or something. You know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
a chance for them to all go and boycott and protest and hold
As
their
soon
signs.
as soon as Disney denounced it, everything was fine.
Well, Miramax was Disney, owned by Disney, so they caught so much flack for the film, and it was even after it was done, where Weinstein had to he was forced to pull it, so he bought it. He bought it. He licensed it to himself to where he could lease it to anybody he wanted, and he
Yeah.
chose a small company at the time, Lionsgate. And you hear Kevin Smith talking about this now. He's like, so he did all this. They didn't know why. You know what I mean? Like other than the churches like protesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's like, this small company, Lionsgate, and Dogma was the biggest film on Lionsgate up until these sparkly fucking vampires came in. And that's still how he says it. And it brings light to the situation. But after, like, Weinstein just pulling it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and then obviously with the sexual harassment cases and shit against Weinstein, he's mildly vindictive. You know.
Mildly.
So yeah, fuck Weinstein.
He's the Satan of cinema, and this is
Yeah.
a movie about fucking like angels trying to get back into heaven and shit. It's kind of ironic how at the end of the day it's fucking swept under the rug. His disgrace can't like bring it brought back to life.
Well, and this is an interesting point to bring up when you're talking about separating art from artist.
Yeah.
So in a way, you can consider Weinstein the artist in this case, and it's really hard to separate things like J.K. Rowling's books from what she says. But in this case, I find it a little bit easier to put Weinstein in one corner and Dogma in another, partly because when I watch Dogma, Harvey Weinstein isn't financially benefiting. You know, it's on YouTube for free. And every DVD that's been pressed has already been sold. So if you're buying a copy, you're not putting money in Harvey Weinstein's pocket. So this is a good opportunity to be like, yeah, the guy who produced it's terrible, but he already made his money.
Yeah.
And nothing I do will give him any
But
more.
it's worth noting that you're not putting money in Kevin Smith's pocket at that point either.
Yeah, that's
but
the
he's
shitty
still like at the point when Harvey Weinstein, like right when he was like got in trouble, he was making his rounds, calling people, and essentially not trying to cover his track, but see who's said something or
Yeah.
who's still on his
See who's
side.
on his side,
And
yeah.
he brought up the idea of doing a Dogma sequel to Kevin Smith.
All right, so I gotta stop
No,
this whole. I gotta
bullshit
stop this whole
move.
thing.
Yeah,
I gotta stop this
bullshit
whole
move.
thing. All right, we've been talking about Harvey Weinstein long enough. Can we please talk about the film in hand here?
Well, I think it's important to talk about this stuff because this is why this movie is so hard to
That
find.
was the end of it right there. I was
Yeah.
going to give, like I said, Kevin Smith. If you can, I'm going to be done right here. If you can find it and buy it, Kevin Smith isn't getting a cent out of that shit.
Right.
But what he was doing in 2019 when he was talking about all this and doing his fucking tour, he was doing $2,000 every month to women.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
need.
And he still
Yeah.
is. He's,
Yeah,
he's still-
because
I was just trying
of-
to wrap
yeah.
it up with that and then no more.
Well, and it's another example of like, yeah, Harvey Weinstein's a fucking monster, but the guys who made this movie, who actually made this movie, good dudes. You know, so you've got Matt Damon, who's just all around a decent guy. You've got Jay and Silent Bob, Good fucking dudes. Like Kevin Smith, like he said, is donating to women in film. That's the name of the organization, right? Women in Film.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the exact acronym, but it was WIF.
Yeah. So he saw the problem, and he said, you know what? My movie possibly contributed to this problem, so this is how, even though I'm not responsible, I'm going to help make up for it. That is a baller move. Kevin Smith, we will have you on any day of the week, bro. Any day of the week.
Yes.
I'd quit my job to talk to you. Okay, maybe not. I don't have a job. But but yeah, so it's important to know the context there, because this movie is incredibly difficult to find. If you can find a DVD copy, you're paying out the ass for it. Otherwise, watch it on YouTube. It's not streamable anywhere, which contributes to its cult status, because cult movies typically are a little harder to find, and this movie just naturally is harder to find.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it shouldn't be, though, because this movie's fucking great.
Right. And it starts out so glaringly impossibly great when they're just watching people in the airport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How they just kind of flip of a coin on any kind of texture that they come across. Is the banter between those two is amazing through the whole film.
For those of you who haven't seen the movie, so between Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, there is a lot of pseudo-theological discussion. So there's a lot of talk of, grace and fallen angels and heaven. And the reason the movie's called Dogma is their whole plot to get back into heaven is based on Catholic dogma, which is if you really just want to break it down into layman's terms, it's theological beliefs that are not necessarily rooted directly in Scripture, but they are supported by the church. That's all that means.
The whole premise is God will honor anything that his man
anything
will
bound
say.
on earth is bound in heaven.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. So Matt Damon and Ben Affleck give performances of their lifetime.
Fucking totally agree with you there. 100%. 100%. I love it. Keep going. I'm sorry to cut it.
I was going to ask you about that, because I think this may be their best movie. Like, Good Will Hunting's amazing. I think these performances may even be better, especially from Ben Affleck. Like, you want to talk about even just the fucking airport scene. Yeah. Him, like, Bartleby's leaned back, eating popcorn, laughing to himself while he's listening to Loki dissuade a nun out of the church. Like, he's talking her out of the church and out of her beliefs. And then he sits down, and Bartleby's like, you know what I don't understand about you? You know there's a God. You have been in his presence. And I just heard you say you're an atheist.
I love to fuck with the clergy.
He convinced a nun that she should be an atheist, too.
I want to point out, too, that Affleck he's got two boxes of popcorn. One that's empty, and the one that he's eating on, and he's spitting the uncooked seeds or kernels into the other one.
Dude,
Genius.
I'm convinced he's the biggest fan of Kevin Smith's script.
Agreed.
Out of anybody. Because
look at Jersey Girl.
Yeah, we're talking about his like Kevin Smith's web of characters. And, their characters either go throughout movies or it's the same actor for different roles. Mm-hmm. Like Ben Affleck in Mallrats, when he was the ex-girlfriend's shitty new boyfriend. Like,
I've heard and read a little bit that they're not really connected anymore, which is a real shame. I really hope that Affleck and Smith can be friends again, because they make a great team. Yeah, they really do.
Yeah,
Chasing Amy, Jersey Girl, and Dogma, just three right off.
It's like Affleck kind of. It's like Kevin Smith through like puppeteering Affleck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It seemed like Affleck, who was like already such an accomplished actor at the time, and Kevin Smith was still just like an indie guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A cult dude already. It's like, I feel like Affleck put like that much trust into him.
Didn't they all go to like school together? Or a bunch of them go to school together?
Sure about that. Not sure.
I'm
from Juilliard.
I feel like they might have gone to college together or met during college, something like that. But yeah, we've got a great team here. Mm-hmm. And I know we've been focusing on our angels. Mm-hmm. So let's
Can I focus on setting a little bit?
Yeah.
Because we were in the Chicagoland area, and this whole fucking party starts in McHenry, Illinois.
Yeah, true.
Which is about 20 miles north of where we're sitting right now. Which is kind of funny. It is kind of funny. Just fucking around at some abortion clinic up in McHenry. And, they take a trip to Jersey.
Right.
I thought that was kind of funny that they just call out Ari.
Well, yeah, and the Angels are hanging out in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like they've been banished to Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Was Wisconsin really so bad?
I guess he calls them every weekend to go hang at the airport, so probably
Right, yeah.
Like, nah. I love the choice of weapon because he gave in his fiery sword.
Yeah.
And it's like, he goes into the gun dealer, which is out of Clerks. And he's like, oh, this one's called whatever, and it's a revolver. He's like, I don't think I can strike fear in the eyes of anybody with this thing. It's a little bit more concealable than the fiery sword, but and then it just kind of quits with, okay, Desert Eagle.
Yeah, I'll take this.
Right. And for all the trappings this movie has, it's really a road movie. Like this is a journey.
Like most of it.
It's a journey movie. Yeah.
There's action, there's comedy, but it's a journey.
It's almost the point of the mission movie where it's like spy movie where Jason Lee's like, I'm not going to tell you my plan because that's what the villain does.
Yeah.
And it still takes them that to figure. There's that mystery. It's not a spy aspect, but like you said, a journey aspect.
It's a road trip movie that's just wrapped up in all this amazing craziness.
Yeah.
Because we've got some of the greatest actors on the planet.
Jason
we've got Ben
Mewes.
Affleck. Well, yeah, Jason Mewes.
Come on.
We've got Alan fucking Rickman in this movie as the Metatron.
Yeah.
And
the
then,
hottest 90s wave phenomenon musician in Alanis Morissette as God.
And they never let her say a word. She's a phenomenal singer and she can't say anything.
It's just she goes boop.
Even when she's the old man in the very first scene, they don't let God speak.
Yeah.
So they hold really strictly to this rubric and these rules that they've set up. It's brilliantly done.
I agree.
For a comedy, the level of thought that went into this movie is astronomical.
I think that's holds true to every one of Kevin Smith's movie. I mean, he's a banter fanatic, just like we talk about some of the greats like Tarantino and stuff like that. It's not the same keel, the same style, but it builds.
He doesn't have to have the
characters.
same.
It builds
It's beautiful
Yeah.
because he's like the dialogue dude, and like you said, it's mind blowing when you look back. He wrote every part of the dialogue for this scene or that scene. It's like his main character, Silent Bob, doesn't say a fucking word.
That's not true. He says 3 words.
He says
no ticket
he's got-
and thanks.
yeah, and thanks.
And
He's got
in
two-
every
he's got
in
two
every
lines
movie, he's
this
got
movie.
one line.
But I'm
yeah.
just saying, like, as Silent Bob being the dialogue guy and being able to go even further than, I won't say he can go further than Tarantino. I'll just say without having the responsibility to learn your own lines, you can go into full.
Yeah.
You do this. You do this.
And
you
he
do
also
this, and it's perfect.
handed over his counterpart in the Muse.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like he
But
gave him stardom.
He lets Muse do so much of the schnoigans.
The most dumb shit ever, but he loves. Yeah,
He lets him in. He writes every insult that Muse throws
So
at him.
imagine being able to, like, you have to write the dialogue for like this whole movie. You're in it. You don't have to say a word, and your supporting actor just does like sound effects pretty much. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to write for him or you. You know what I mean? You just
Well,
write
his
for him,
facial
and-
expressions are
and
pretty
that,
awesome.
That gives you so much freedom for directing at that point.
Yeah.
It really does. Like it's.
It's what makes them a great pair as characters, really. It's, I'm Jay. This is my hetero life mate, Silent Bob.
And they
And
always
you know
introduce
everything you need to know about
I'm
it.
Jay. This is my hetero life mate, Silent Bob.
Yep.
I love Jason Mewes' voice, too. There is something about it that is just calming.
Schnoigans.
Like, all the crazy situations these two find themselves in, and listening to Jay speak is the most calming effect. They are literally fighting heaven in this movie.
Yes.
And it's like, just listening to Jay talk, even when he's being a nutcase, it's like, this is almost ASMRing me.
Yeah, right. Well, he's just trying to get laid the whole time.
This is true. This is true.
It's just him, Hey, lady, who in the hell do you think you are? Walking away like that.
Going around breaking people's hearts. I fell in love with you. He fell in love with you. We fell in love with you.
Jeez, it's glorious.
Great. It's great. And I think we should break form a little bit. And because this movie is freely available, and I highly recommend, because fuck Harvey Weinstein, you go watch this on YouTube, we're not going to give away any more of the plot. Can we make that deal?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Actually, that's
from here out, we should talk craft. Because if you want to see this movie,
Cool.
you shouldn't have it spoiled too much for you. You know what the movie's about now.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about why it's
I
great.
like that shit. Fuck yeah. Fuck
So
yeah.
we've talked about dialogue a little bit, but we always talk about camera work. Shasti, is there anything in this movie that stuck out to you specifically? Any shots that stand out to you at this moment as being amazing?
Not off the top of the head, but I feel like you've got some.
I don't. I knew that was going to be your answer. Now, this
I feel like
movie.
there's really no need for trickery. Or
There's not.
Yeah.
There's not. So this movie is not shot straight, though. There's still a few Dutch angles. There's some wides where you normally wouldn't put them.
Yeah.
But because of the writing style, you expect a weird camera style, with one exception. Every shot of an angel, specifically of Alan Rickman or the character of God, and the muse, Salma Hayek's character, those are all steady. They're glorious shots. They are perfect. Everything else, yeah, look at that. Look at that. That is a beautiful shot. Everything else looks indie. I think he intentionally shot this movie for the cinematography to be somewhat forgettable, but it leaves an impression while you're watching the movie that you don't take Jay and Silent Bob all that seriously, because the camera's bobbing around a little bit just as Jay bobs his head, you know? So, but when you're watching the Metatron, the camera's frozen. And it's like the cameraman is in awe of this angel.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
And to add to that, I think that, like you said, all angels, all deities, all that. And for every other scene, there's usually 3 to 5 characters in single scenes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's filled. The screen is filled with characters until you walk upon some kind of,
it's a great ensemble.
Higher level. Yeah,
it's a great ensemble, and it's technically 2 ensembles, because we've got the ensemble of, the duo of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and then you've got, the Jesus crew, I guess. You got the Apostle, the Scion, and the Metatron. So you've got, and obviously Jay and Silent Bob. So you've got these 2 ensembles in a single film, and you're never left with an empty screen.
No,
you're absolutely right.
And they're both fighting amongst themselves as it is. I mean, Loki was the angel of death. He bestowed. Sorry, I guess we were not trying to give up too much, but he how he portrayed him as is he mass destruction, mass genocide. Mm-hmm. Flips the script, and now Loki's like the good guy. Like, just fuck this shit. I mean, I don't want to do this. I mean, we're talking about going against the throne.
Yeah,
and Ben Affleck's like he's they called him the writer or the reader, the watcher.
Mm-hmm. He's one of the watchers,
and now he's not watching anymore. He wants to bestow.
He wants to go home.
Yeah,
that's what's at the core of every road trip movie. Is you want to get to you either want to get to a show,
there it is,
or you want to go home. So Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You've got
this is totally
plain. Yeah,
we
can stop there.
Yes,
like,
their car
you just
that
want to
broke
go
down,
home.
Train that they
You just want to go home, and at the core of everybody's impetus is going home. Jay and Silent Bob just want to go back to doing what they're doing because they're not getting late. Well,
They went out there to sell dope.
Right. Or they're trying to go back to the Quickie Mart.
And the Scion, she just, like Bethany, she just wants to go home. She's like, I didn't want to get caught up in all of this. The Metatron hates Earth, wants to go home. God wants to go home. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, it's very clear that our angels just want to go home. This is a road trip movie to the core, and you don't notice it until you look back.
The coolest part after that, because usually road trip movies involve some kind of sexual act. All of them are like inanimate. Like they like show Ken doll fronts, but that's kind of funny part of this whole movie.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
I wish I could suck dick, but I don't have a fucking mouth to suck dick, or you know what I mean?
It's
vice
really
versa.
cool that they took that idea. Like, I think it's just basically a throwaway line, if there is such a thing, from Scripture, where it's like, Jesus is talking to a bunch of Pharisees who are trying to trip him up, and they're like, so if a woman is married to 9 brothers, but they all die in succession, she marries the first brother, he dies, marries the second brother, she marries all 9 of the brothers, who's she married to in heaven? The whole point of the angels not being able to fuck in this movie is the line that comes next, is Jesus says, just like the angels, they will not be given in marriage, nor will they be married. They will be neither male nor female. It is such a small detail in the Bible that they built almost an entire plot line around.
And that's why the Catholic Church got so butthurt.
Right.
Sending
exactly
home,
why.
Sending home hate emails to your kids.
All right, so you asked me about how it was shot,
Mm-hmm.
and then you brought up this like the just shots with the angels.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Kevin Smith being accessible and answering Q&As. Was that something he talked about, or is that something you gathered?
That was just something I kind of noticed as I was watching.
Okay, so another funny story about him and his directing style. Like we talk about Clerks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people asked about, why it was shot in black and white, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah, and it was like, like it's obvious when you hear him talk about, it was the money situation, right? But like,
Yeah.
if you didn't hear him say that, you just like jumped into some forums. It's like. They shot in black and white, so you get the perspective from the security cameras. And he heard that from one of his like early Q&As a long time ago, and it got to the point where he had a huge interview, like a talk show on TV like the next week. And every time since then, someone asked him like why it was shot in black and white. He goes, "Oh, because it was like really shows the perspective of the security cameras." Like he's really that type of guy who just does something because it's the easiest way,
Right.
And will go along with that throughout. He'll call himself out on it and be like an inside joke for everybody, but
Right.
it's such a great aspect for that. So that makes me think for that too. Like, are these
Maybe it was
high def shots?
accidental?
Maybe it's just easy just to do a static cam. That's like we're renting for the day, you know what I
Right.
mean, or something.
It's
but
entirely possible.
yeah, I thought it was funny too.
It would be really funny if we're sitting here extrapolating all this deep meaning out of the cinematography, and Kevin Smith's like, we had a steady cam for like
Yeah.
6
Yeah,
hours.
Well, it's the other side of it that he shows you that light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great. It's honestly great for a filmmaker to do that.
I mean, you talk about Kevin Smith's interviews, and if you want to know the ins and outs of like the comic book world, like the writing, or if you want to know about how movies are made, like he's kind of the guy to go to, like watch his interviews, because he's very
He's a fan.
honest.
He's a fanboy of film and culture.
Yeah.
and
Comic
comics.
books
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, like I mentioned in the beginning, like he's got that podcast that's been going for probably almost 10 years now, the Fat Man on Batman. Kevin Smith wrote for Batman in the 90s, maybe in the early thousands, but he knows the ins and outs of that industry. So when he talks about it, it's in layman's terms, and it really gives a good perspective. Same thing with film, like when Shasti's talking about, him saying, we did this because it was easy. You kind of get a view into how movies are made, and you realize as critics and as movie buffs, we probably read way too much into film.
Well,
but that's part of the
that's
fun.
The fun, yeah. It's like creating your own plot, creating your own ending.
The best
It's
directors
headcanon.
and writers and screenwriters leave that for you too. Like we talk
Yeah.
about that for the ending of a lot of our movies. Like there's controversy. When it's an opening ending, did it really end this way or that way? They'll all tell you like that's for you to decide.
Yeah.
Like it didn't end anyway. And it's great.
It's one of the things that puts him in that upper echelon.
And that also works with his characters, the web that he holds.
Yeah.
You never know if they're connected or intertwined at some points. I mean, he's gold, man. I mean, for taking something out of nothing and creating a dynasty.
Seriously.
Can't get much
Made
better
a
than
career
Kevin
out of it.
Smith, I mean, it's literally Uncle Rico goes NFL. You know what I mean? It's kind of what I think of him, and he's so detail oriented to the point where you don't even realize it. Like when they're walking past, the guy's got a movie cow. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's callbacks and callbacks and callbacks on every one of his films, and he just enjoys fucking with people. And I think that's part of his mystique. His dynasty is he just wants to fuck with your head a little bit.
Yeah.
They
Wants
bring
to
up
make you
into the rabbit
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah.
In this movie,
start-
He's
too.
not
It's
mean about it.
They
though.
start the
No.
movie with a disclaimer about how
Yeah.
this movie it's hilarious because it like all right like
God has a sense of
beyond-
humor.
Yeah,
Look at the
but
platypus.
They start off just by saying this is a comedic movie, and they break down comedy. Like everything here is satirical, nothing is to be taken to heart. If you're offended by anything here, that's not our intent. And then it goes on to say like part 2, like God has a sense of humor, so you should too. It's like just
Yeah.
look at the platypus. And then it goes on to part 3, like, no offense to the platypus. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but this is a movie that, you know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
they just make it so,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, you guys are both right. He likes to fuck with people, but he's not mean about it. Like we've compared him to Tarantino today. Tarantino wants shock value. Kevin Smith wants two things. He wants you to laugh and he wants you to think. And he's able to inspire both very well.
Yeah.
Like it seems to just come naturally to him.
And sometimes overthink. A lot of the times overthink. With how dumb some of this shit comes off. You know, when he that comedic value through Jay and Silent Bob, how dumb they come off. There is truly a story to be told, and they always have their come to Jesus moment where it's like, oh, these guys are okay.
Yeah.
And he uses that as like a ploy almost to like make himself seem dumber because he's so intellectually there, you know, abundant. I feel like it's like an idiot savant thing, and he just plays really well off that fucking aspect.
He's got the people behind him too, like Chris Rock. Coming off Saturday Night Live at that time, one of the top comedians in the world. George Carlin too, you know what I mean? George Carlin was the guy who, in all his stand-up acts, he'd get real serious and tell you, you know what I mean? Question everything.
Yeah.
Like don't just fucking go along. Like question everything. Be smart. Think
and
for
Chris
yourself.
Rock also joined him in later films too. You know, like I said, he's got people that he loves, that like he cherishes and has respect towards, and at the same time, these people I feel like they would lay over and play dead just for his.
We talk about some of the
vision.
greats like Burton and Guy Ritchie, and how they can just have a star-studded lineup just because. Like, how else are you gonna afford this? And we talk about the budget, and it's like, what, for this many millions? Because you got these actors that we look up to from these roles, who are looking up to these directors.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like DeVito
100%.
and all these awesome dudes just following Burton along everywhere. It's kind of the same.
Well,
thing.
and you can kind of extrapolate that a little further and talk about how Sandler makes movies with all of his friends.
Yeah.
However, not all of Sandler's movies are great. Like everything that Kevin Smith and his team put out is pretty good at the worst.
And there's always a message, even though like they cloud it with like homosexuality and like,
or just
you're just not gonna being a chauvinistic pig of
or
a man.
homophobia. You know what I mean?
That's
What looks
saying,
like homosexuality is homophobia. What looks like anti-Catholicism is just getting you to question. Like something.
And it goes to show there's a way to be in this industry and work with your friends. There's a way to always have your buddies around you and to bring everybody up
And
without
still create
making garbage once a year.
Art.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Not just some shit you throw on film. Like I said, there's a message, and every time he takes a step, anytime he puts himself out there, like the guy's. He's not making the ridiculous.
Think
six,
about making
you know?
making Chasing Amy though. Before this, at that time, like that is a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
That is,
but it's like
the most shasty romantic comedy ever. Like it is beyond. I don't know. I feel like that film doesn't get enough credit either. But we'll.
Yeah, I think Chasing Amy definitely needs to hit the list. Like that's something we need to review. I love Kevin Smith, and I would love to review like Clerks and stuff. But I think to really get an idea of what he's all about is to watch Dogma and Chasing Amy and Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back.
Mallrats, I think, is a huge part of that one.
Yeah,
too.
if you got time, throw Mallrats in there.
Yeah, I think
I can get behind that.
It's one of his early works. I mean, just making fun at the whole angsty teenager.
And it's like all the characters from that area that they came up with. You know what I mean? Between Clerks and Jay and Silent Bob, there's Mallrats is the bridge for all of those characters.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And it's like Ben Affleck getting there as a different role. You see Gail Hicks as a different role. You see
Jason Lee.
Yeah. Brody.
And Brody plays like Jason Lee plays like 25 parts.
Yeah, no.
Even sometimes like 3 times in the same movie, he's a different character.
He's like the comic book fanatic, or he's the actual comic book, the shader. Oh wait, so you just trace? Like, no.
Or as the producer.
I had depth and colors.
Oh fuck! This is a great movie.
I know it's hard to touch on because we're not giving away too much, but it is a great movie.
Yeah, but there's so much to talk about. I mean, from the cinematography to the dialogue to just picking the right actors and knowing who you work well with. Originally Bartleby was supposed to go to a different actor, but because because Matt Damon had such chemistry with Affleck on Good Will Hunting, they're like, Ben, old buddy, come join us for this movie. And it works. You know, every second of this movie works. You can tell it's a 90s movie at times.
Yeah.
Like, every time Chris Rock opens his mouth in this movie, you're like, oh, yeah, this is 99. But it's not in a bad way.
No.
It's not like, oh, this is fucking dated. It's like, oh, yeah, this is what we loved back then.
Yep.
And this is what we love, why we love it now. That said, I mean, I think we've covered all the bases there. So, any last thoughts before we get to taco scores?
Nah.
I always say this in the
some
middle of the
directors-
taco scores. Somebody has
I mean, there's so much. You got director's cut going on too, which is a new show from Josh and Greg. So it's like I feel like a lot of the Kevin Smith stuff will eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got him in
and
the
especially
lineup.
because we're not like giving as much away on this film because it's not out there for everyone, and you guys should spend the money to support.
Or go to YouTube for free.
Go to YouTube and watch it for
Or
free.
that, you know, obviously.
Or pay Greg $200 for his DVD
Dude,
copy.
I gotta.
So
So yeah, apparently
Wait
this
for the
DVD
plug,
is like
wait for the
some
plug.
serious kind of shit, you know. So I got the DVD.
we
Holler
got
at me.
it. We got it right here. Right?
So, you all know that Greg is your plug for the Dogma DVD, but what you may not know is Greg is also your plug for the first taco score.
All right.
Hey, Grego, what's your score? Pause for effect. Can we play music?
82.
Really?
82.
Okay.
I didn't. We talk about cinematography in this a lot, and character analysis, this that, and the other. I mean, for one movie, there's not as much. It's hard to explain because he's done so much, and I like celebrate his whole fucking dynamic, you know. So, but for this movie, I didn't think there was a whole lot of growth except for like one character, Bethany. Yeah, that's why I'm giving it a semi low score just because of that. It's not my favorite Kevin Smith movie. It attacks a lot of fucking angles in your own brain, which I love. He's a cerebral assassin in this movie.
I like that.
Love
I like
that part. But overall, it was rushed a little bit as far as timing goes, and
Okay.
over the top is a tough thing to say because we talk about that a lot, but that's his shtick. And yeah, so I guess I'm just feeling time with words right now. 82.
82. Shasti?
I'll do like a 72. Somewhere.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. In my echelon for Kevin Smith movies, maybe this is 2/3 of the way up there. So I'll just leave it at that. 72.
Okay. I'm going to shock you both. This film gets a 92 tacos from me.
Holy moff.
Now, this movie is not the best movie ever made, but I think it's one of the top. I'd say it's in the top 150 ever because the script is intentionally loose in some places and tight in others. The camera work follows those loose and tight moments. The characters are well defined. You always know whose motivations are what. You never get anybody confused. This movie does all of the basics so well you don't fucking notice it. So,
Is this your favorite Kevin Smith movie?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'd say the next Kevin Smith movie, I won't even tell you what it is, but it would probably get like a high 80s from me. This is a few steps above everything else he's done. This is a 92 from me. Damn. This only gets a 67 from critics. Fuck them critics, man.
Damn.
That's
Fuck
why
them
you never
critics.
take it seriously.
But the audience score was an 84, so they're right on par with you, Greg. Yeah. I think critically, yeah, this movie is it's just very well. It's so well made, you don't notice that it's well made. It's you get lost in what's going on and what's in front of you. If you're to watch it critically, you have to watch it multiple times, which is what I did yesterday.
Yeah, 100%.
I watched it twice just to watch it, and then when I was cutting clips, I watched the whole movie again as I went through.
The dialogue is everything. Yeah, that's why this movie's gotten such a high score from me is because of the dialogue.
Dialogue,
I'm a
cinematography,
sucker
intentional
for Kevin Smith
cinematography.
movies because of the dialogue, right? And like I said, 2/3 up the echelon for me. So
So, but before we do plugs and stuff, we've been talking about dialogue a lot.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about Clerks a lot.
Yeah.
Was it the first or the second Clerks where Jay and Silent Bob dance?
The second.
The second one?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Kevin Smith gave an interview years and years ago. He goes, when Clerks 2 came out, I was asking people, like, after they watched it, what was your favorite part? And like, oh, when you and Jay and Silent Bob, or when Jay and Silent Bob are dancing. And he goes, it really hurt me. Because I put all this time into writing this fantastic dialogue, and everybody's favorite part is when these two fucking idiots are dancing in the alleyway. With no dialogue, just some music.
He tucks it in.
So just a little anecdote I didn't really have a place for, but we kept bringing up the dialogue and it kept coming to mind.
Hell yeah.
That said, it's time to do plugs, folks. I know it's come to that time of the night. Thank you for sticking with us this far. We appreciate you if you have. Since you enjoyed us all the way through, you should head on over to our Patreon and support us financially. There you will find early access to all of our episodes, both podcast and video. You'll get exclusive episodes, and you'll have exclusive access to a lot of our pilots. We put all our pilots up on Patreon, and most of them we don't release to the public anywhere else. You can also head on over to our Teespring store and hit up some of the merch. Otherwise, I'd say hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you know when we put up something new. Typically speaking, we're putting up a podcast episode both on anywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube on Sundays, and we're doing a video episode every Tuesday starting in March. Right now we've got Thesis Statement, and starting in March of 2021 we're also going to have Director's Cut. That said, I'm not allowed to forget that I wrote a book. Greg forgot to remind me last episode, and I forgot to say it.
You are the forgetful
I
writer.
am the forgetful writer. I wrote a book. It is a young adult fantasy novel, the first in a series of The Gatekeepers. The book itself is called Reaper. You can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesNoble.com, anywhere online you buy your books in hardcover, paperback, and ebook. If you just search Josh Price Reaper, it'll be the first thing that comes up. Buy my book. Buy my book.
Buy the book. Buy the fucking book.
Grego, is there anything on your mind you'd like to plug?
No, I'm pretty pumped about Director's Cut, though. You should check that shit out. And Thesis Statement, you're doing a hell of a job, Josh.
Thank you, sir.
Keep us alive, ladies and gentlemen. We'd love to serve and protect your earbuds and your ear holes.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I would also like to remind everyone who's watching and listening that all of our music is produced and oftentimes written and performed by the master of the mix, the king of the keyboard himself, Shasti. You all saw him mix our intro live there at the beginning of the episode. He does that every week with us without complaining. This is what we don't pay him for, folks. This is what we don't pay him for. That said, we love you, we see you, we hear you. Catch up on your catechisms, like I said, and don't forget to say goodbye.
Tell a person that you're the Metatron and they stare at you blankly. Mention something out of a Charlton Heston movie and suddenly everybody's a theology scholar.
What the hell's an apostle?